everyone, how's it going? My name is 𝗙𝗂𝗹𝗪 and I am a business coach for authors over at paperbackingdom.com, and today I want to talk to you guys about why I love being an indie author. So for those of you who don't know my story, I have been traditionally published twice. So I first started querying in high school in my final year. I remember deciding very seriously that I was going to go on and do this authorship thing because it was something I wanted to do my whole life. So I enlisted the help of my English teacher back then. She's such a great person. She's still we still keep in touch today. And I was young and I needed some help. So I was like, can you maybe just go through my manuscript and just give me some feedback so I can query it and have it make a really good impression. So that was really valuable. She really helped me in doing that. And I queried that year and I walked out, I graduated that year and I got an acceptance letter from a publisher. I got a contract offer and it was my first query attempt ever. So that was really interesting because I had been prepared to query for some time and I had expected to get rejections and I was fully prepared to just keep trying, and right out of the bat I got a legitimate publishing offer. I took it to a lawyer, I said, is this real? And they went, yes, this is real. So I ended up signing with them, and then 3 months later the publisher went bankrupt and then I was back to square one. But in that time my book went through edits, it had a cover designed, it was basically halfway through the process of getting out into market. And so that was kind of discouraging for me at the time, but I knew that if I'd done it once, I could do it again. So for that particular book and that particular series, I really held the vision to get signed a second time and to really see it through to completion. And 3 years later, it happened again, where I landed another contract. I went ahead and signed with them. So I stayed with them until late 2020, and I got 4 books out with them in total. I was in the process of working on edits for my 5th one when I decided to leave, and I had 2 books left after that I was supposed to get out with them. But I ended up breaking my contract at that point. So it was a really pivotal decision for me to leave, which I do just want to touch on, and I'm not going to go into all the reasons why I left because it's just not my business to air publicly. But when I first signed with that publisher, I really liked the feel of this publisher, and I felt good going into it. And at the time, it felt like the best decision. And so I don't regret signing with them. And what I want to talk about in a different video that I have planned is how having them actually helped me to kind of get off the ground and skyrocket my career over the past 5 years, because I absolutely would not have been able to do it without them. So I fully acknowledge that. And I definitely don't regret being with them. And I had wanted to at least get this fantasy series out with them. I wanted to kind of see it through to the end. And that was my goal. And that's why I stayed with them for so long. But over the years, because I was growing a business at the same time and I had discovered a love for entrepreneurship, I realized that my core values around business and around making sales and around just how I wanted to live my life moving forward had changed so deeply that I didn't feel like it was a good relationship by the time I left. I felt like we had too many key differences and that I had realized I wanted to do things differently. So that was part of why I left. The other part was just some creative differences and conflicts that were happening internally that I won't go into detail about, but I did feel kind of impacted my sales overall, and I felt like I could do it better on my own, especially having the business background that I have. So I just didn't see the benefit in staying when I felt like it would be better for me to set out on my own and do it myself. So in the end, we did part ways, and I have been fully indie from that point forward. I took a break in 2021. I stepped away from my books for a year to kind of refresh and just have a break from that particular series because I had been working on it relentlessly back to back for quite some time, and I just needed that step away. So I have been indie since then, and I am in the process, at the time of me recording this, of kind of republishing that series. And I still have them available online through my Patreon for people to kind of technically publish. They can sign up for the subscription of my Patreon and get access to the books there. But I didn't want to be selling them until I'd kind of gone through them again. So they're technically published and they're technically, not available in paperback at the moment. But that's the goal, is to kind of get them out again properly when I feel ready to work on it again, because it's going to be a big project. But I also have, on the side while I was with them, I was also releasing a self-published contemporary romance series. And I'm still working on that one. I have one book left to release in that series. And I, in 2021, worked on a secret book under a secret pen name. It was my 8th book that, so I actually had a lot of experience doing it at that point. And it's a fairy tale retelling. And that's a duology under a different pen name. This year I have one book left to release in that series and it will be complete. So I have about 3 different series going on under 2 different pen names. And I have plans to release more series under the pen name moving forward. And I think once I've wrapped up my series with my original author name, I will be going over to the pen name. I'm very transparent and open about the fact that that's my pen name, like I tell people, but I just want to kind of build that out moving forward because it feels like a more aligned space, and it feels like it's my better work because it's stuff that I didn't write in high school or ideas that I didn't have in high school. It's stuff that I've kind of come up with in the last couple of years that I feel more passionate about at this point of my life. So it's all kind of falling into place, but that's just a little bit of background around like my history with publishing and kind of why I stepped into deciding to be fully independent. It would take something very huge for me to want to go back to traditional publishing. I'm very kind of set in the fact that I don't really advocate for it anymore and I don't really want to do that anymore. Though I do acknowledge that for some people it is a really good fit. Like I said, it really helped me get started because there's a lot of stuff that you have to do as an indie author. And while I was growing a business, it wasn't very sustainable for me to have to do a lot of that extra stuff that they did for me. Now, a lot of people think that that might be marketing stuff. They assume that publishers do a lot of marketing work. That wasn't the case for me. I didn't have really any help with marketing. What they took off my hands was more editing and cover design stuff that I would have had to do anyway. So it was helpful for them to kind of do that for me. I would do the edits. I would then go through the final proofing to make sure that the formatting was all correct and approve it. And they would pretty much take care of the rest up until the publication point. So that was really helpful, like really super helpful. So for some people who are in a day job or just like don't really have the time or budget behind them to get a lot of books off the ground and build momentum, that can be very helpful to have a publisher in your corner or someone who is helping you. It doesn't necessarily have to be a publisher. But at the same time, I really struggled with the back-to-back deadlines and having to do things their way, and that was one of the reasons why I really wanted to go out on my own. So here are some reasons why I love being fully independent as of the time I have been, and things that have been a significant difference just for me in general. I know that this could be different for everyone, but this is really why I love it. Okay, so the very first thing is that I have control over all of my publishing deadlines, and this is a huge advantage that indie authors have over traditionally published authors, whether they realize it or not. Because like if you're in a day job, then you're still gonna have the problem that I had running a business full time, which is that I did not have like all the time in the world to be writing and publishing and marketing, and I am very good at carving out time for it. Like I have the flexibility as the CEO of my business to carve out time for it, and I always had that in mind. I have a very good kind of setup where I have certain months of the year that I do my writing in, and I give myself plenty of time to implement the launch in the marketing, and I'm really intentional about that, and it's helpful that I teach that at the same time, so I'm always kind of doing it and I'm in it and I'm looking at it. But at the same time, when I was with my publisher, they were in charge of deadlines, so I didn't really get to decide how much time I got to have with things. They would kind of just come to me and say, okay, we need this in 3 months. And then I'd have to write a book in 3 months, and I may have already planned some launches in my business, and then I just had to kind of roll with it. And that I thought I could do in the beginning, but it became less and less sustainable, especially when I started to have these back-to-back publishing deadlines every year where like I would finish writing a book and I would immediately have to start writing the next one to make another deadline, and that just really burned me out. So what I love about being fully independent is that now I really don't have that conflicting deadline stuff going on where I am the final say. Like I get to decide when a book is coming out and when I want to work on it and when I'm going to be writing it and when everything is kind of happening for it. And if I need to push things back, I can, and it doesn't inconvenience anyone. It doesn't like affect another author who's in the lineup. It doesn't affect an editor who may have been relying on that work. Like I just get to kind of decide that and book things when I need to, and that's just super helpful for me as someone who may need that flexibility. And the other thing is that I know that I write best when I'm not under pressure to deliver something by a certain time. And that doesn't mean that I procrastinate it. It means that I'm really good at understanding when I write well and being able to do it when I'm in the flow. So I always give myself time to write a book when I'm in flow so that I can write my best work, because I don't want to be putting something out because I had to make a 3-month deadline and it's going to be crappy, because that has happened with this publisher. Some of the books have not been up to the standard that I wanted them to be because I had to get them out so quick. I want my books to be good, and I still want to get them out in a timely manner and build momentum and consistency with it, but I don't believe you have to do it so quickly. And I believe that the long-term benefit is the quality of the book and the fact that people are going to find it in 5 years' time and still think that it's really excellent and still want to recommend it to their friends and still want to reread it time and time again. And that's going to benefit me far more than riding the high of some 3-month rapid release strategy. The second thing that I love is that I earn a higher royalty, because here's the thing. When I was with my publisher, I was earning 80 cents per book sale, which is not a lot. And it meant that I had to sell about 100,000 books per year to be able to replace my salary just on book sales, which quite frankly was never going to happen with my current reach and the marketing that was going on with that publisher. And what I grew to understand after working in publishing houses and studying all of this is where all the money is going in different situations. And this is all averages, by the way, but they can expect to take around about 33%. And then everyone else who has a hand in the pie takes about 20%. So you're looking at your distributors, your printers, your bookstores. If you have an agent, they might take 10%, and you're left with whatever is left over. So as the author, I was getting 6% of what was left. And that wasn't a whole lot. And it seemed really unfair, considering that I was also running around doing all of the marketing work for my book, and everyone else was profiting off of my hard work and my original ideas that they wouldn't have anything to profit off if I hadn't come up with the book and written it in the first place. And for some reason, everyone else was earning more than me. And I understand why this happens, because when you look at it with a business lens, you can see that like your publishers and your bookstores and your distributors, they all have team members and they have staff that they need to pay. So because they have these overheads, it makes sense that they would get a bigger cut to be able to keep that going. So I fully acknowledge that. And I fully acknowledge that as the single person who maybe doesn't have all that going on, I may not need to get such a big cut. But it still felt unfair, and it still felt like an injustice to just my own values around my work and how much I value myself. So when I realized that, and I realized that was not going to improve, it really did influence my decision to leave and take out the publisher. It means that you then become the publisher, so you get the author earnings and the publishing earnings, which brings you up to 39%. So suddenly you're getting the highest cut and everyone else is still getting an equal payment, and that seems more fair, that you are getting the most profit because it's your idea and you're doing all the work to sell it, and people who are assisting you in making it available and having it available for purchase, that's still fine and they should still get paid. But at the end of the day, that book's selling because I'm running around marketing it, not because they're pushing it. So I should be the one making profit off of my ideas, and that's the way that I see it. So that is why I enjoy getting that higher royalty, because I just feel like it's fair. The third thing that I love is that I have full creative control over who works on my book and all the creative decisions that go into it. And so this especially landed with me after having experienced being with a publisher. So something that happened in 2019 is that I went on a trip to New Zealand, and I got these edits while I was on the trip, and I was doing the edits on the trip. And I remember I was sitting in this lodge and I had gone there to kind of do some edits while it was snowing outside. And I opened up with this manuscript, and I was borrowing the internet there. And I looked at the manuscript, and it had no edits in it. And I thought that was really weird, and I thought that I had the wrong document. And so I emailed the person who liaised with my editor, and I said, hey, I just wanted to make sure I got the right document, because this document doesn't have any edits in it, and they've had it for like 2 weeks. And I thought that something had mucked up, that I was in a different country and the internet was playing up or something. And they came back and said, no, that's right, and your editor didn't do the work that they were meant to do in your book, so we're going to change your editor. And at that point, I'd already published the first book in my series, plus the novella, and I had noticed with the first book that the edits were very scarce. And I thought that made sense because I had actually done 18 drafts of that book before that publisher picked it up. So I thought it may have actually been at a point by that time where it was probably polished enough, and maybe it did only need a couple of edits. But what I realized once I got the new editor, who came back with hundreds of edits and suggestions, is that that first editor wasn't working on my book and giving it the full time and attention that it deserved. And I've been placed with that editor, and I didn't get to have a say in it until I complained that there were no edits. And I was not one to rock the boat and create problems, so I never thought to say something about that until I didn't have anything to work on it. And if I'd gotten 2 edits or something, I probably would have rolled with that and probably would have continued to have this other editor for all of my books. So the thing is that really impacted my sales, for the long-term sales of my series, because people were reading the first book and it was not up to scratch, and people were not going on to read the next books. And so I was having to meet all these deadlines and having to write these books that were not even selling because the first book needed work, and because it was published with a publisher at that point, I couldn't just pull it and do some work on it and put it back up. Like, they had already kind of gone through that process. They were not going to pull it and redo it. I would have to break my contract to be able to do that, which is another reason why I did. And so that was really bothering me, that the first book was not performing well and that I was still having to meet these deadlines and get these other books out when the series as a whole wasn't selling because of the work of this first editor. Now, I know I'm putting a lot of blame on this editor. I fully put a lot of trust in my editors. When I feel that a book is ready and I put it towards an editor, I really listen to their feedback and I listen to whatever they have to say, because I feel like I've done what I can at that point, and I trust that the editor has the expertise to kind of get me to where I need it to be. That's why I felt really upset about that. And my next editor that I had was excellent, and she really caught a lot of stuff that I didn't think of, but it's why I rely on one. It's why I expect to have a good one. And so that really bothered me that had happened. And what I love about being an indie author is that not only can I pull something when I see that it needs fixing or it needs adjusting, not that I would pull every book that started to do poorly or got negative reviews. It was just that in this case, it happened to need a lot of work, and it was impacting my long-term sales. So I had to do something about it. And I love that I can handpick and kind of screen my own team members that I choose to work on it. So I have trusted editors that I use for my self-published books that I personally really like, and I have cover designers as well, and I fully trust in what they do. So I'm always happy to hire them, and I know that my book's going to be the best it can be because I've decided who I want to work with and who I think is a good fit for my book. So that's something I really love to have creative control over, and I've always felt that way, but I especially felt that way after going through that experience, because I'm not going to put all this time and money and energy into launching a book only for it to flop. And I didn't like feeling stuck and feeling like I didn't have control over that situation. Okay, reason number 4 is that I love having full responsibility. So a lot of people, they feel really kind of pressured and nervous about the idea of having to take full responsibility for their own actions. I actually love this, and I feel like it's a huge blessing. So what I realized being with this publisher and just having a few problems, there were a couple of times when I wanted to do a book signing or I wanted to do an author event, and I would have to get approval first, and I would have to order books first through my publisher to be able to go ahead and do the thing. And there was a lot of delayed correspondence going on, which I totally believe was just a back-end issue of theirs because they were growing so quickly and they were trying to keep up with the capacity. So I don't blame them for this happening. I just believe that was like a business issue that they were dealing with on their end. But it did impact my sales at the time because I would get this delayed correspondence back, and by the time they got back to me, it was too late to do the event. The deadline had passed, or it was so close that I would have to spend money out of my pocket because they couldn't get books on time. And that really affected my sales a couple of times. What I love about being fully independent is that my success is entirely on me, and I don't feel restricted by other people, having to rely on other people, having to work with other people, having to compromise with other people, and I don't feel like I am powerless when someone else makes a decision that then impacts my results. I know that when I fail, it's on me, and it's also in my power to fix it, because I don't have to rely on anyone else for the success of my books. But at the same time, when I succeed, that's also on me, and that feels like a huge accomplishment for me. And so I love having that responsibility, and I consider it a blessing for that reason, that it's no one else's job to sell my book and make it successful. It's my job. And that is something I can fully get behind because I fully advocate for my books and I fully believe in them. Also, I know I'm using a lot of specific examples based on my experiences with my publisher, but I think they're really helpful to hear to really show the benefits that do come in with indie publishing. And of course, not everyone's going to have bad experiences with a publisher. Not everyone's going to need to take back their power around what they're doing. But I still think it's helpful to know where your power does lie when you go fully independent. And the final reason I love being fully independent is that it just gives me freedom to be innovative. Because like I said, I do have a very entrepreneurial spirit, and I have decided that if I'm going to be fully independent and I'm going to have a coaching business alongside my books, I might as well just get really experimental and try lots of different things and teach authors what works and what doesn't based on my own experiences. So I love that has given me the freedom to try different strategies and to build alternative projects and income streams within my author brand, and to break the mold a little bit around what people have been doing in a traditional sense for so long, and really show people that they can do things differently and they can get results, and that they don't have to stick to what has been done in the past. So I really have plans to test things out with Patreon, and to test things out with some other ideas that I have in the works. And I want to show people that they can do things differently and they can get results. So I just like having the freedom to try different things and to really utilize my entrepreneurial personality to be able to integrate that with my author brand. So that is everything. Those are the 5 reasons that I love being an indie author. I really, really hope that this has helped you. And again, this is just my personal feelings and my experiences, but I hope that it kind of gave you some insights and maybe helped you make a decision around what you might like to do if you're considering going down either path. And like I said, I still believe there's a place for traditional publishing. I still believe that for some people it is a perfect fit. So I am definitely not hating on it at all. I just personally do not advocate for it anymore and do not feel that it's aligned with what I want to do. If you want to learn more about what I do and you want some more resources around publishing, I do have some linked in the description box below. I actually have a really great checklist on self-publishing if you want to check that out. But that is all from me, and I will chat to you guys in the next video. Okay, bye.